Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and in today's video let's do a manual Cat 3 landing in low visibility using the heads-up display of the working title Boeing 787. Now, I'm saying working title, it is the aircraft in Avionic Beta 2 that is going to come to your simulator in the next month. So I'm referring to working title anyway because they are doing the great work that we are going to see live in this video. Now, let's quickly talk about the weather minima that we actually need for such an approach. And basically, I'm talking about the minima of my airline over here. Obviously, other airlines might have different certification minima. So we can do a Category 3 Alpha approach with this aircraft, which basically leads us down to the following. Let's have a quick look at the approach chart over here. So, we got the minima section down here, and this is the Cat 3 Alpha minimums that we have. 50 feet decision height and 200 meters RVR. Now, normally this would require the use of the autopilot and the flight director system. So normally you would have to do a complete automatic landing with this. However, with the heads-up display, the airplane is certified to do it in a manual landing, and in this video I'm going to show you how. So let's quickly talk about the setup at first. We have to set our minimums, which is going to be a radio minimums of 30 feet. Sorry, 50 feet obviously. So radio 50, we check that this is displaying normally. Next up, we of course need our approach setup. So we've got the ILS 26 left with the beta transition there at the moment. For the NavRad page, we verify that the frequency is correct. So we've got 108.3 and a course of 261. So be aware of minor differences that can occur over there, and they are going to play a big role later on in the approach. But we'll talk about that in a few moments. Also, we've selected a flap 30 landing. Now, in real life, we would always be using auto brakes in the 737. However, in the 787, you can actually brake manually, and the head-up display is going to show you your different auto brake levels right on the display. So we'll take it from the head-up display and do it all manually today. Apart from that, we are pretty much done with our setup, so let's go ahead and quickly read our descent checklist. And that is going to be auto brake selector off, anti-ice off, altimeters 1013 set, descent checklist complete. Okay, so that is pretty much our approach checklist. I'm going to take full control of the airplane now, bringing the speed back, descending to our platform altitude of 5,000 feet, level change, and then we will commence our approach. So let's talk about the symbology that we have on the heads-up display then. Well, first of all, here is how to set it up. This is the default viewpoint at the moment in the beta. This is likely to change to the release version because there are things that are clipped off on the side. So be sure to select the proper viewpoint, which can normally be done by just positioning it a little bit further forward that you can see the entirety of the HUD indications on the screen. Next up, let's quickly talk about the approach mode. We're currently flying with a HUD in primary mode, and this is going to give you all the lovely stuff that we are seeing on our primary flight display as well. However, that is a little bit cluttered for the approach. Keep in mind, our goal is not to just have a second primary flight display in front of us, but to actually be able to see and suck in as much information as possible. So for that reason, right on the control column, you have the declutter switch over here. If you press that, you will see how a lot of stuff like the altitude tape and the speed tapes are removed from the display and replaced by the information you see up here and up here. Next up, let's talk about the information that we have right on screen. So obviously we have our flight path vector, which is the symbol you see over here. We have our flight director, which is the little circle in the middle there. And this basically tells us to line the flight path vector up with the flight director symbol. if the flight director is inside of it, then you are exactly on the flight director. Next up, you have that little chevron down here, and you have the little bar down here, and this is your speed indicators. So this indicates if you're accelerating or decelerating, or rather if you're gaining energy or losing energy, and this one tells you how far your deviation is from the target. Now, if this had the size of approximately the circle over here, that would be a 5 knot deviation. Right now you can see it's a little bit less, so it's in the region of about 1 knot of deviation. And indeed, our selected target is 218, so you can see how, as we're about a knot under it, we just about get a tiny deviation down there. So that is how to read that kind of information. In other words, when we are on the final approach, we don't really need our speed indication anymore. All we need is these two pieces of information here, with the chevron indicating us if we are gaining energy or losing energy. In other words, if this goes up, we reduce thrust a bit. If this goes down, we increase thrust a bit. And then we have our speed deviation scale on the left side over here, which indicates to us if we are too fast or too slow. Okay, let's go heading hold. And then we need a 080 heading in order to leave the holding over here and commence our approach towards Munich. So this is the basic setup that we will need for this approach. And that the last thing there is going to be your brightness level of the HUD. So you can see right now I've set it to a level where basically you can see the HUD indications, but they are not particularly bright. The default brightness indication would be something like this, which makes it pretty much impossible to actually see your landing runway through it. Especially on those Cat 3 approaches, the lights may become visible only very, very close to the minimums, so you absolutely want to have maximum visibility. For that reason, we are going to adjust the HUD brightness as we fly along, so that we can actually turn it down to the minimum level required to be able to still see the symbology on the HUD, while at the same time not blocking our point of view. Okay, with that we are fully set up for the approach, so let's go ahead and help ourselves onto the final approach with the direct towards the final approach fix. Execute that, and then we can use LNAV to intercept. So, the quick point once again. Declutter your head-up display using the button you have on the control column over here. This is the standard view, and this is the decluttered point of view. And then make sure that you're in a seating position where you can actually see everything properly, and adjust the brightness of the HUD display in order to be able to, well, see through it properly. Now, the last thing that is worth mentioning over here is what you are going to see on the final approach. So, once we are established on the final, and once we are close enough to the runway, we are going to see the runway symbol appear on the heads-up display. Now, that runway symbol is basically what we're flying the airplane onto. And like that, we can do the landing without the visibility, because the HUD basically draws the runway for us. However, there is a bug at the moment in Microsoft Flight Simulator, which you see, by the way, not only on the working title heads-up display, but also on the HUD of the PNDG 737, which basically displaces or turns the runway symbol slightly. So the symbol is not going to be aligned perfectly with your runway edge, but indeed it is going to be moved a tiny bit, like a degree or two, to either the left or the right hand side, depending on the problems with the magnetic variation we have in the simulator. So don't expect 100% accuracy there just yet. That is something that Asobo still has to fix. Okay, finally, when would I recommend to switch to the decluttered mode? Well, right now we could just stay with the standard primary mode here, which would give us nicer speed control indications, but I recommend to switch to decluttered the very latest when you're actually established on the final approach. By the way, the speed reduction and flap extension is a very nice point here to actually see how the speed deviation symbols are going to work in action. So, Let's go flap 5. And you can see, now that I'm reducing my speed back over here, you can see how the speed deviation scale becomes higher and how the auto throttle reduces thrust, and therefore our chevron is going down over here. So like that you can follow up how the airplane is decelerating on the approach. Alright, we have localizer capture and glide slope capture. So we've got a runway heading. Runway heading 261, missed approach 5,000 feet is set. Okay, so that's the basic setup and the stuff that we need to care about. Oh, come on, airplane, you can shut up now. So, disconnecting the autopilot. And the auto throttle. Silence, thank you. Gear down. Flaps 20. Another thing worth noting, flaps full. Terrain is noted. So, another couple things that are worth noting over here that are really going to make your approach easier is the 3-degree line that you have on the glide slope up here. And when you're on the glide and you position your flight path symbol right on the 3-degree line, then you should basically be maintaining the approach path perfectly. So that might give you a little visual indication there of how to make it easier to stay on that glide. Okay. We're all established, all trimmed out. Also note regarding the localizer, you've got your course bar up there, your heading buck up there, which should be set to the runway heading, and that's going to make it easier for you to maintain the localizer. If you just put this over this, then you should basically stay right on the localizer. Okay, we're entering the IMC. Let's switch the HUD to the decluttered mode. And as it's getting a bit darker outside, we can switch the brightness of the HUD display down a little bit as well. So let's just quickly go ahead and do that. Like this. Okay, now it's simply up to accurate flying. You can see our speed used to be a little bit high, but now it's back. And we're right on the glide slope again. Coming over a tiny bit to the right. 1000 is checked. Note how there's a little bit of wind that's constantly shifting us a tiny bit left or right. You can really see that happening on the displays. There is our artificial runway symbol coming up. So this is what we are going to land the airplane on. Note a little bit of glide slope deviation there, but I am correcting for that. Make sure the speed is not running away. So when you're that close to the ground, it's almost impossible to actually maintain the glide slope accurately in maxed out flight sim. So here we are.
40, 30,
and just throw it right onto the ground.
10.
Okay, and now you've got your auto brake deceleration levels visible down here. So you can use your wheel brakes to position the chevron right on the auto brake level. So right now, for example, I am following auto brake level 3. Like that, you don't even need an auto brake in order to land your airplane. So, still following the auto brake levels over here, and we are approaching a turnoff. Ground speed is good, so we can follow the exit off the runway. Once we're off, I would stow the heads-up display so that we can get a better view of everything that is outside. And that is how you do a manual low visibility landing. Now, needless to say that without the heads-up display this would have been an absolutely impossible task there. So, thank you very much for watching. I do hope that you have definitely enjoyed this one. If you did, do let me know in the comments below. I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one, hopefully very soon. And until then, make sure to like, comment and subscribe. And if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate to see you as a channel member, which is going to give you exclusive early access to new videos before they are released for everyone else. However, if you don't want to join, you can always make a one-time donation using the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and see you all again, hopefully very soon.